You used a really good word there, actually, when you use the word stories, because that leads into my next question for you, which is, related to some current events in the MMA world right now. We're basically still on the outskirts of UFC 196, where Nate Diaz beat Conor McGregor and Misha Tate beat Holly Holm for her title. So my question to you is, what do you think happens next with all of these competitors and the other contenders that are also tied into both of these stories? Because this is basically that event was just a giant upset, and I'm sure a giant monkey wrench in the plans of the UFC.
Yeah, but it was a monkey wrench that I think is going to just mean more money for the UFC. I know a lot of people, and then maybe rightfully so, in the near future, saying it cost them millions of dollars. Of course, Conor McGregor, the biggest draw in the company, with the chance to, really solidify his legacy, moving up two weight classes, and was supposed to, actually was supposed to move up one weight class to fight the lightweight champion Rafael dos Anjos, who unfortunately broke his foot, and even, of course, McGregor trying to make history by becoming the first UFC fighter to do what Dan Henderson did in Pride, and that was to win, and hold two titles simultaneously. But yeah, the apple cart was rocked in a big way with Nate Diaz, who I picked to beat Conor McGregor because of a variety of issues, size being one of them, experience, and also the fact that I think Conor McGregor still remains a bit of an enigma when it comes to his ground game. Although all three of his losses in his career did be a submission, I think that's the interesting question. How will he now respond to adversity? He was very gracious in defeat. He remains a huge prize, still the 145-pound champion. I expect him to defend the title against Frankie Edgar, even though I know the UFC likes to put together rematches when champions lose. The fact that Jose Aldo lost in a record 13 seconds and then turned down the opportunity to face McGregor when Dos Anjos fell out. I think Frankie Edgar has more than earned the right to defend or challenge McGregor. I think it's a huge fight and one that I think will go down at UFC 200. For Nate Diaz, this guy can outright his own ticket. I mean, he made a huge chunk of change, biggest purse of his career, and as we saw with his brother Nick when he fought George St. Pierre and made the biggest purse of his career, how much he disappeared for a while. I think the Diaz brothers are at a point in time now where I think most of them just want big fights that are going to make them a lot of money, and I can see Nate Diaz maybe. He wants to avenge the loss to Dos Anjos, go down to lightweight. He hasn't fared very well at welterweight, although that's where this fight against McGregor was contested. I know people thought maybe he would challenge Robbie Lawler for the welterweight title, and Nick recently said, or excuse me, Nate said that those both sides fights, those weight classes are for his brother Nick. So I think Nate Diaz may face Dos Anjos again, or just wait to see what Dana White and company come up with. I don't think he's in a rush to get back, and I know he won't have a regular fighting schedule. He's not going to be Donald Cerrone, that's for sure. But I believe that he may go down to 155 and face RDA. For Misha Tate, wow, talk about hard work and everything she's put into her career, and what an amazing, dramatic come-from-behind victory against extremely talented Holly Holm, who was the favorite, who I thought would beat Misha Tate because of the fact that she was so much better in the stand-up, or according to the stats of a multiple-time world boxing champion, kickboxing champion. We saw her with the vicious kick KO of Ronda Rousey, who had defeated Misha Tate twice prior. But I think Misha Tate right now is the best she's ever been, and she's always going to be involved in these dramatic fights. You remember against Marlus Kunin and Liz Carmouche and Julie Kensey, and she just is the personification of heart. But she's got skills. She's shown Holly Holm and plenty of resilience. And I think Misha Tate, I know, could face Ronda Rousey for the third time if Rousey returns. And I know people think, no, she will return, but she's got, 3 movies she's got to film. I still wonder where she is mentally after the first loss to Holly Holm and how she reacted to said loss. I don't think it was the best way to handle that situation, but she is a phenomenon, Ronda Rousey, the biggest female star in the sport. So maybe it'll be Misha Tate and Ronda Rousey. I could see Misha Tate, Holly Holm too, because of how dramatic and how exciting and how close the fight was. And I know Holm would like to have that rematch, maybe at UFC 200. Tate's boyfriend and trainer Brian Carway mentioning the name of Amanda Nunes, who I called in Strikeforce. I don't think that's a marquee attraction at this point. Nothing against Amanda Nunes, who is an explosive fighter. In fact, conditioning can be a problem, but she doesn't have the name value yet. And I think Misha Tate, knowing how much she had to overcome and what she had to go through to get to this point where she is, now more successful, more famous than she's ever been, she can now, call the shots, so to speak. And I wouldn't be surprised if she takes some time off as well and just reassesses the landscape and does what's best from a bank account standpoint. Let's face it, at the end of the day, it's prize fighting, and for all of these fighters, there are millions of dollars at stake. I think Holly Holm is going to, try to get that rematch, and if not, I could see her against a Kat Zingano, or even, maybe they do the rematch with Ronda Rousey. I know that still was supposed to be the biggest fight in UFC history, and I know Dana White had some less than kind words to say about Holmes' manager, who demanded that she, defend the title against Tate instead of waiting for Rousey. And all of us are going to wait for Ronda Rousey. I really don't know if Ronda Rousey will return to fighting, and I'm not just saying that to be contrarian or to create drama. I just see, how she handled the defeat and adversity, and I know, a little bit about her former relationship with her old manager, Darren Harvey, and I covered her fights in Strikeforce, and as talented as she is, and as popular as she is, fighting is 90% the mental game, and she's been through a lot in her life, has been well documented, and I really truly wonder if she's mentally going to be able to bounce back, or if she wants to.
Well, let's talk a little bit more about Ronda then, since you brought that up. I mean, what do you see as the future for Rousey? Because she is doing movies. Maybe her mind isn't quite recovered yet from the loss that she's had against Holly Holm. I guess my question would be then, where do you see Ronda in the next 2 to 3 years within this sport, if she even stays 2 to 3 years? Do you think she's going to stick
Yeah, I
around?
don't think she'll be in the sport. I don't think she'll be in the sport longer than maybe her next fight, if and when she does fight. And truthfully, I've gone on the record by saying this. I think Holly Holm beats her even faster because of what transpired in the first fight. And this is nothing critical about Ronda Rousey, the person. I'm in awe of what she's been able to accomplish and how she's done it, and to be able to transcend the sport and really become one of the most popular, mainstream wise, the biggest star maybe in the sport. And yet, the movie is a lot easier, as difficult as it is to make a movie. It's a lot safer, easier than getting, into a cage. And the amount of work. And I go back to what Marvelous Marvin Hagler said, the great middleweight champion, who said it's kind of hard to get up, it's very hard to get up at 5 in the morning when you're sleeping in silk sheets. Ronda Rousey's already made more money than she'll probably ever need in her life. And if she wants to pursue acting in movies, then why come back? But I also know she's a competitor. I also know she's a fierce competitor. And I know she posted the video on Twitter this week of her biting into an apple as a metaphor. She said she couldn't even bite into an apple after the fight with Holm when she broke her jaw. So maybe that's a sign that she's getting ready to come back. But when? If she's got 3 movies to do this year, she's already not competing at UFC 200. And I think the longer she's away, I don't know, the harder I think it's going to be to come back. And I think that's the same situation for George St. Pierre, who was at UFC 196, who's been very vague about his future. I know the UFC would love to have him at UFC 200. Maybe, hey, why not against Nate Diaz? It's a star-driven business, and yet George St. Pierre has made more money than he'll ever need. And people were talking about a very violent sport, combat sport. MMA is as physical as it gets. So if you're doing it to better your family or your life, and knowing how dangerous the sport we're talking about. I mean, now the information we're getting on head trauma, concussions. I think Brock Lesnar may have put it best: you get in it to get out. You make your money, you solidify your family's future, and you move on. And I think that's the way it's going to be more and more as we move forward, and that's fine, because this will give other opportunities to others to seize that proverbial brass ring. It is about marketing yourself. And Ronda Rousey now is at a point where I think that first loss did it. It crushed her, and I really wonder if she'll ever recover.